This meeting is being recorded.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to serve you all. Shall I start from verse 22 or 23, which is on screen?
23.
23.
Yeah.
All right. Ekonavimshevimshatime vrishnishu prapya janmani Ramakrishna iti bhuvo Bhagavan aharat bharam.
In the 19th and 20th incarnations, the Lord advented himself as Lord Balarama and Lord Krishna in the family of Vrishni, the Yadu dynasty, and by so doing he removed the burden of the world.
Tatakalau sampravrite samohaya suradvisham bodhonam na jana sutta kikateshu bhavishyate.
Then, in the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as Lord Buddha, the son of Anjana in the province of Gaya, just for the purpose of deluding those who are envious of the faithful theist.
Athaso yoga sanhyayam dasyo prayeshu rajasu janita vishnu yashaso namnakalpir chagatpatim.
Thereafter, at the conjunction of two yugas, the Lord of the creation will take his birth as the Kalki incarnation and become the son of Vishnu Yasa. At this time, almost all the rulers of the earth will have degenerated into plunderers.
Avataraya sankhya hare sattva niverdvasha sadahave dasina kulya sarasa siyo sahasrasha.
O Brahmanas, the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from inexhaustible sources of water.
Rishayo manavo deva mano patra mahojasa kalasarve hare eva saprajapa taya smritam.
All the rishis, manus, demigods, and descendants of Manu, who are especially powerful, are plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. This also includes the Prajapatis.
Etecham shakalapumsa trishnasto bhagavan svayam indrarevya kulam lokam meridayanti yuge yuge.
All of the above-mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists.
Janmaguhyam bhagavato yat etat prayato nara sayam pratar grinan bhaktya nukhagrama na vimuchite.
Whoever carefully recites the mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life.
Etatat rupam bhagavato ya rupasya chit atmana maya gunar virachitam mahadadibhir atmanim.
The conception of the Virat universal form of the Lord as appearing in the material world is imaginary. It is to enable the less intelligent and neophytes to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having form, but factually, the Lord has no material form.
Yadahana mahasi meghogho renurva parthivo anile evam drashtari drishtyaatvam aropitam abudibhi.
Clouds and dust are carried by the air, but less intelligent persons say that the sky is cloudy and the air is dirty. Similarly, they also implant material bodily conceptions on the spirit self.
Ataparam yat avyaktam avyudho guna brimhitam adrishtashuta vastutvat sajiva yat punarbhava.
Beyond this gross conception of form is another, subtle conception of form, which is without form or shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has his form beyond this subtlety, otherwise he could not have repeated births.
Yatreme sat asat rupe pratishidhe samveda avidya yatmani krite iti tad brahma darshanam.
Whenever a person experiences, by self-realization, that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord.
Yadi esho parata devi maya visharade mate sampana evete vedur mahimni sve mahiyate.
If the illusory energy subsides and the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then he becomes at once enlightened with self-realization and thus becomes situated in his own glory.
Evam janmani karmani yakurtur ajanasya varnayanti sma kavayo vedago hyanti hritpate.
Thus, learned men describe the births and activities of the unborn and inactive, which is undiscoverable even in the Vedic literatures. He is the Lord of the heart.
Sava idam vishvam amoghalila srejati avati ate na sajati asmen bhuteshu shantarhita atmatantra shat vargikam chigrasti shat gunesha.
The Lord, whose activities are always spotless, is the master of the six senses and is fully omnipotent with six opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent.
Nachasya kashin punena datur evaite janto kumanisha yute namani rupani mano vachabhe santanvato natacharyam evagya.
The foolish with a poor fund of knowledge cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama. Nor can they express such things, neither in their speculations nor in their words.
Saveda dhato pandavim parasya doranta viryasya radhanga pane yo amayaya santata yanovritya vajeta tat pada saraja gandham.
Only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand, can know the creator of the universe in his full glory, power, and transcendence.
Adheha dhanya bhagavante itham yat vasudeve akila lokanate urvante saravatmakam atma bhavam nayatra bhuya parivarata ugra.
Only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant, for such inquiries invoke transcendental ecstatic love unto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of all the universes, and guarantee cent per cent immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death.
Idam bhagavatam nama puranam brahma samhitam utama shloka charitam shakara bhagavan rishi nihi shreyasya lokasya dhanyam svatya anam mahat.
This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God, and it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect.
Tad idam grahayam asa sutam atma vatam varam Sarvavedeti hasanam saram saram samodhritam.
Sri Vyasadeva delivered it to his son, who is the most respected among the self-realized, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literatures and histories of the universe.
Satusam Shravayam Asa Maharajam Parikshitam Parayopavishtam Gangayam Paritam Paramarshibihi.
Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, in his turn delivered the Bhagavatam to the great emperor Parikshit, who sat surrounded by sages on the bank of the Ganges, awaiting death without taking food or drink.
Krishnesva Dhama Pagate Dharmagyanadhibhi Saha Kalaunashtadrishamesha Paranarko Adhunodita.
This Bhagavata Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana.
Tatra Kirtayato Viprarshir Bhuri Tejasa Aham Shadiha Gamam Tatra Nevishtastat Anugrahat Soham Va Shravayishyami Yadahadhitam Yadhamatim.
O learned Brahmanas, when Sukadeva Goswami recited Bhagavatam there in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus, by his mercy, I learned the Bhagavatam from that great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I have realized it.
Thank you so much, Sonal Mataji, Pranas Prabhu. Thank you very much for reciting. Very wonderfully recited. And thank you all devotees for joining this evening. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Today we are going to discuss verse 24 and give me one moment. Yes, the screen is visible now.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, so before we start, okay, let's just recite these prayers. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Nar Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So today is verse 24. The purport is really, really long. So let's see how much we can extract from this verse and from the purport. So it's Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, verse 24. Tatha kalo sampravitte samho ayasura dvisham buddho nam nanjana sutaha kikateshu bhavishyati. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Then in the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as Lord Buddha, the son of Anjana, in the province of Gaya, just for the purpose of deluding those who are envious of the faithful theist. I think I'm going to read the purport today so that it goes quickly because it's very long. Lord Buddha, a powerful incarnation of the personality of Godhead, appeared in the province of Gaya as the son of Anjana, and he preached his own conception of non-violence and deprecated even the animal sacrifices sanctioned in the Vedas. May I please request everybody to mute yourselves. At the time when Lord Buddha appeared, the people in general were atheistic and preferred animal flesh to anything else. On the plea of Vedic sacrifice, every place was practically turned into a slaughterhouse, and animal killing was indulged in unrestrictedly. Lord Buddha preached non-violence, taking pity on the poor animals. He preached that he did not believe in the tenets of the Vedas and stressed the adverse psychological effects incurred by animal killing. Less intelligent men of the age of Kali, who had no faith in God, followed his principle, and for the time being, they were trained in moral discipline and non-violence. The preliminary steps for proceeding further on the path of God realization. Sorry, I can't see my screen. He deluded the atheist because such atheists who followed his principles did not believe in God, but they kept their absolute faith in Lord Buddha, who himself was the incarnation of God. Thus, the faithless people were made to believe in God in the form of Lord Buddha. That was the mercy of Lord Buddha. He made the faithless faithful to him. Killing of animals before the advent of Lord Buddha was the most prominent feature of the society. People claim that these were Vedic sacrifices. When the Vedas are not accepted through the authoritative disciplic succession, the casual readers of the Vedas are misled by the flowery language of that system of knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, a comment has been made on such foolish scholars, avipaschitaha. The foolish scholars of Vedic literature who do not care to receive the transcendental message through the transcendental realized sources of disciplic succession are sure to be bewildered. To them, the ritualistic ceremonies are considered to be all in all. They have no depth of knowledge. According to Bhagavad Gita 15.15, Vedescha sarvair aham eva vedya. The whole system of the Vedas is to lead one gradually to the path of the Supreme Lord. The whole theme of Vedic literature is to know the Supreme Lord, the individual soul, the cosmic situation, and the relation between all these items. When the relation is known, the relative function begins, and as a result of such a function, the ultimate goal of life, or going back to Godhead, takes place in the easiest manner. Unfortunately, unauthorized scholars of the Vedas become captivated by the purificatory ceremonies only, and natural progress is thereby checked. To such bewildered persons of atheistic propensity, Lord Buddha is the emblem of theism. He therefore, first of all, wanted to check the habit of animal killing. The animal killers are dangerous elements on the path going back to Godhead. There are two types of animal killers. The soul is also sometimes called the animal or the living being. Therefore, both the slaughterer of animals and those who have lost their identity of soul are animal killers. Maharaj Parikshit said that only the animal killer cannot relish the transcendental message of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, if people are to be educated to the path of Godhead, they must be taught first and foremost to stop the process of animal killing as above mentioned. It is nonsensical to say that animal killing has nothing to do with spiritual realization. By this dangerous theory, many so-called sannyasis have sprung up by the grace of Kali Yuga, who preach animal killing under the garb of the Vedas. The subject matter has already been discussed in the conversation between Lord Chaitanya and Maulana Chand Qazi Sahib. The animal sacrifice, as stated in the Vedas, is different from the unrestricted animal killing in the slaughterhouse. Because the asuras, or the so-called scholars of Vedic literatures, put forward the evidence of animal killing in the Vedas, Lord Buddha superficially denied the authorities of the Vedas. This rejection of the Vedas by Lord Buddha was adopted in order to save people from the vice of animal killing, as well as to save the poor animals from the slaughtering process of their big brothers who clamor for universal brotherhood, peace, justice, and equity. There is no justice when there is animal killing. Lord Buddha wanted to stop it completely, and therefore his cult of Ahimsa was propagated not only in India, but also outside the country. Technically, Lord Buddha's philosophy is called atheistic because there is no acceptance of the Supreme Lord, and because that system of philosophy denied the authority of the Vedas. But that is an act of camouflage by the Lord. Lord Buddha is the incarnation of Godhead. As such, he is the original propounder of Vedic knowledge. He therefore cannot reject Vedic philosophy, but he rejected it outwardly because the Suradisha, or the demons who are always envious of the devotees of Godhead, try to support cow killing or animal killing from the pages of the Vedas, and this is now being done by the modernized sannyasis. Lord Buddha had to reject the authority of the Vedas altogether. This is simply technical, and had it not been so, he would not have been so accepted as the incarnation of Godhead. Nor would he have been worshipped in the transcendental songs of the poet Jayadev, who is a Vaishnava Acharya. Lord Buddha preached the preliminary principles of the Vedas in a manner suitable for the time, and so also did Shankaracharya, to establish the authority of the Vedas. Therefore, both Lord Buddha and Acharya Shankar paved the path of theism, and Vaishnavacharyas, specifically Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, led the people on the path towards a realization of going back to Godhead. We are glad that people are taking interest in the non-violent movement of Lord Buddha, but will they take the matter very seriously and close the animal slaughterhouses altogether? If not, there is no meaning to the Ahimsa cult. Srimad Bhagavatam was composed just prior to the beginning of the age of Kali, about 5,000 years ago, and Lord Buddha appeared about 2,600 years ago. Therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Buddha is foretold. Such is the authority of this clear scripture. There are many such prophecies, and they're being fulfilled one after another. They will indicate the positive standing of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is without trace of mistake, illusion, cheating, and imperfection, which are the four flaws of all conditioned souls. The liberated souls are above these flaws. Therefore, they can see and foretell things which are to take place on distant future dates. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. What a wonderful purport. Before we start discussing, we'll just recite our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Right, so this was a really long purport, and here the advent of Lord Buddha actually is being predicted, because the word used is bhavishyati. So in the future, bhavishya. And like this paragraph, the last paragraph of the purport, clearly Prabhupada is talking about how the Srimad Bhagavatam was composed in the beginning of Kali Yuga. And Lord Buddha appeared only 2600 years ago. So this was already predicted in the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And as we have previously discussed, that the Lord incarnates, when the Lord incarnates, there is always a reason why he incarnates. So here in this particular verse, when, who, why, and where, everything is being described. So it says that Lord Buddha will incarnate in Tata Kalahu Sampravite, Kali Yuga. So when is that? It'll be in Kali Yuga. Who is coming? So it says Buddha Namna Anjana Sutaha. Anjana, it is all giving the name of, the mother, that he is Anjana Sutta, son of Anjana, Lord Buddha. And then it says, why? The reason why, always like we've discussed, there is a reason why the Lord incarnates. So here, the reason why the Lord is incarnating is Samohaya Suradvisham. Samohaya is for the purpose of deluding. Suradvisham is Sura and Asura. We have discussed these terms, Sura and Asura, in our last class. Sura are the theists, and Dvisham is those who are envious, Dvisha, Dvesh. So they are the atheist. So in order to delude these people, and then where is the Lord going to incarnate? And it says, Kikateshu. Kikateshu is in the province of Gaya in Bihar. Imagine how absolutely accurate is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Like 5,000 years before it was composed, Buddha appeared 2600 years ago, but everything has been clearly in the pages of the Bhagavatam given when, where, how, and for what purpose Buddha is going to appear. The Lord incarnated because just before he appeared, the entire place was becoming like a slaughterhouse where animal sacrifice was being carried out everywhere. Hundreds and thousands of animals were being slaughtered on the plea of Vedic sacrifice. The justification given was that this is mentioned in the Vedas as a sacrifice that one can perform in order to get material benefits. And thus, hundreds and hundreds of animals were being sacrificed every day. Now, Lord Buddha was a prince. He was the son of a king. He had not really been out of his palace. And then one day when he did venture out, the scenes that he saw really affected him. So he saw an old man who was very sick. He saw a dead body. He saw, of course, animals being slaughtered. And all this made him to think, because he was, inherently compassionate. It made him meditate on how he can save these animals from being slaughtered. And then he came up with the philosophy of Ahimsa. Now, our acharyas say that this Ahimsa was actually, it isn't the permanent solution. It was a temporary solution in order to curb animal killing at that time. But it wasn't a permanent solution, because at that time, something needed to be done to end this unrestricted killing of animals. But just by following Ahimsa, the final goal of life is not realized. And like our acharyas explain, that the goal of life is self-realization. And Ahimsa is one of the qualities that a human being should develop, but it is not the be-all and end-all. And these various qualities that a human being should develop is discussed in our scriptures, But anyways, Ahimsa is one of the qualities. 30 qualities are mentioned. This is mentioned in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th chapter by Narad Muni. 30 qualities are mentioned, and out of that, Ahimsa is also one of the qualities. But anyways, that is not the be-all and end-all. So our acharyas explain that for that time, for that time, place, and circumstance, ahimsa was the most important thing, because animal killing was going on totally unrestricted. So now let's come to this verse. And we look at some important points from the verse. So like it says over here, Prabhupada in his purport says, on the plea of Vedic sacrifices, everywhere had turned into a slaughterhouse and animal killing was going on everywhere. Now, what people, and Prabhupada elsewhere in his purport explains this, that sometimes we tend to take things which are for our benefit, and we discard rules and regulations which do not benefit us. Yes, animal killing has been spoken about in the Vedas, but there are rules and regulations that one has to follow for it. It is not that one can do it unrestricted. You see, in the Vedas, it is clearly mentioned about these things, and the rules are there so that some people may think, the rules are there, but it is encouraging us. No, if you see the rules, if you listen to the rules, the reason the rules are there is so that people get discouraged and they think it is just not worth it, So there are these rules. Now, why animal killing is being spoken about in the Vedas is because there are some people who just cannot avoid eating the flesh, or who cannot avoid this. So for such people, at least rules are given so that if they follow these rules, although they're doing a very abominable action, but if they follow these rules, there are chances that somehow they may still progress. So let us look at some of these rules. These are not all, these are not complete, but some of these rules. So in the Shastras, the injunction is that whoever is unable to give up meat eating, they may sacrifice one goat, not a cow. So a goat or a sheep before the goddess Kali. Very clearly it says this, right? The next rule says that the person who is desiring to eat meat must himself kill the animal. So it is not like you go to a slaughterhouse, you go to a supermarket and you buy this packed meat. If you desire to eat meat, you must kill the animal, because all the karma, whatever you're doing, you should bear it, not that it has to be shared with everybody. And we've heard of a story very recently of how one hunter stopped killing animals when Narad Muni gave him the advice, go and ask your family, will they share the karma of killing animals? Does anybody remember the name of this hunter?
Mrigari.
Thank you, Hema Mataji. So you see, the person who's desiring to eat meat should kill himself. Then he knows, then he knows what's happening. Like we talk about, how children in the city today don't even know where the milk comes from. For them, the milk comes in a bottle. So it's like that. We don't really know the cycle, the life cycle that, earlier people who were, farmers growing up on the fields and villages knew everything. But people don't know these things. Unfortunately, that is the sad truth of modern day. The third point is that meat eating is allowed only once a month, and that too on the Amavasya, the dark moon night. Now think about this, that this person has to kill the animal on Amavasya, which is a dark moon night, and then wait for this further. It says that killing of the animal should be done out of sight, so far away from where the civilization is. So ideally in a jungle, so that the other people don't see and hear the animal crying. Now it's, we don't want to go into the deep discussion of these things, but wherever there is life, there is feelings. A lot of people believe that it's okay to eat animals because, animals don't feel anything. Of course they feel. They feel everything. They feel all the emotions, and they feel the fear like us. They are also attached to their life like each one of us. Like when a mosquito sits on your hand, and the moment you kind of try to hit it, it flies away. Why is that? If it did not have any fear, it would still keep enjoying the blood that it is sucking from your body. But every living entity feels pain, has this fear of death. So imagine that a person who wants to eat meat has to kill the animal himself on a dark moon night, away from civilization in the jungle. And then the last from what I thought was important is that before killing the animal, this man has to whisper in the ear some mantra, which is Mama Swaha. And what it means is, now I am killing you, and in future you can also kill me. Now, when you read all of these rules, by the time you come to the fifth one, and there are more, which I thought, these many are enough for us today. When you come to the fifth one, by the time you come there, you think, is it really worth it? Where I'm actually saying that I am killing you and in future you can kill me. Is this what life about? Just for the taste of my tongue, am I willing to do this? So this actually, all these injunctions are there to discourage. But, people, because they are so engrossed in trying to fulfill their senses, one, and second, because the idea that they will get some material prosperities by sacrificing animals for various demigods, people don't look at the bigger picture. So it says over here, Prabhupada says very clearly that when the Vedas are not accepted through a disciplic succession, so what happens is that one doesn't understand the depth of the scriptures and superficially is reading things. And yes, the Vedas are they are steps. You don't reach the top immediately. There are various steps because there are various kinds of people around. And the Vedas is giving an opportunity to everyone to progress on their spiritual path. So it has sections which is for people who are in the mode of ignorance or passion. It has sections for people in the mode of goodness also. It has different kinds of section. But we tend to take what really appeals to us and don't look at the bigger picture. I myself have experienced when I was growing up that how attached we get to the ritualistic performances of religion without understanding what actually am I doing and why am I doing this. So we don't really question things sometimes, especially people who've grown up in a specific religious community. Like, for example, for myself, so I grew up in the Hindu community. I never question things like, what is the meaning of Aarti? Why am I doing this Aarti? What does offering, ghee lamp do? It was just something that was done out of habit without really understanding anything. And the attachment was only to the ritualistic activities without going deeper what this is actually doing. And Prabhupada talks about this. And this is the verse from Bhagavad Gita, which actually Prabhupada talks about. I'll just recite the first verse, 2.42. Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avishpachitaha vedavadarata partha nanyadastiti vadinaha. So the translation reads that men of small knowledge are very much attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. So what happens is they are stuck just in performing these various activities, which will give them good birth or which will give them elevation to the heavenly planets. But they forget the goal of life, which is to break out of the circle of birth and death. Vaishnavas do not want good birth. Vaishnavas don't care about going to the heavenly planets because that is not the goal of life. And Vaishnavas realize that. But like Prabhupada is saying in the translation, the Gita is saying So Krishna is saying this, that men of small knowledge are just attached to only that much. And that is why Srila Prabhupada in his purport is explaining why it is so important for us to understand our Shastras through proper authorized disciplic succession. Because otherwise, there is understanding, but the understanding is only partial. That is, we don't have the complete understanding. The complete understanding obviously is that we have to understand who I am, who is God, what is this creation, what is the interrelation, like Prabhupada speaks in the purport about this, that unless you understand all these things, unless you understand what is your relation with God, with this creation, then you will not know what your function is in this relation. I have a relation, like for example, most of us have jobs, we go to work. I don't anymore, but most of you probably go to work. You've got a job, you go to the office, you're given some task to fulfill. Your relation with the boss, your position in that place. You do not treat your office as your house. You know what your function is over there. You know that you will do this job, you will get a salary. There is a relationship, there is a function, there is a responsibility. The same way, unless we understand what my responsibility is, what my goal is, and the ultimate goal of life is self-realization. Prabhupada says that Vedescha Sarvam Aham Eva Vedya. The reason, the whole goal of understanding the Veda is to understand me, the Supreme Lord, Krishna. But if I'm not doing that, then what is the point? And if we don't listen from authorized scholars, then we just get caught up in the superficial externals of the Vedas and don't go deep within. And then our natural progress towards the goal, towards going back to Godhead, is stopped or checked. So then in the purport, Prabhupada, a very important point, he writes about the two types of animal killers. So here we are talking about, so one is, of course, the animal killer, which animals, whatever, but the other is also the living entity, the animal that is, the Prabhupada says, people who have lost their identity of soul are also animal killers. The reason is that if you do not understand your identity, then you will not really fully utilize this human body. This form of human body is given to you after many, many lifetimes of being in different bodies, whether it was animal, plant, worms, whatever else it could have been. But it is a progression. You finally come to this human form of body, and the goal of this human body is to understand that I am this soul. This body is changing, it's temporary. After this, I might get another body, but I'm this soul. And for the soul, the only dharma that the soul has is to establish his relation with the Lord, with his creator, with the Supreme. And if he does not do that, then he is also an animal killer. So there are two types of animal killers. One is who's actually killing the literal animals. The other is who is losing the identity of the soul. He is also an animal killer. And there is a wonderful verse in the Ishopanishad where it talks about the killer of the soul. And it goes, Asurya namate loka andhena tamasavritaha tamste pretya vigachanti yeke chatmahano janaha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. So many places we are being warned as such that if we don't truly understand why we have been given this human body and what we should be doing, then we are killers of the soul. And then we will enter these planets of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. It's actually, when you think about it, and today I was, just a realization today that sometimes, like Prabhupada says so many times, the problem with my disciples is that you don't properly fear the material world, or you don't properly fear Maya. And today I was thinking, I really don't properly fear what goes on in the planets of darkness and ignorance when I was reading this. Because if I would, then I would take my spiritual life more seriously. So anyways, but yes, so these are the two types of killers that Prabhupada is talking about in his purport. Now, then it says that if the people are to be educated to the path of Godhead, they must be taught first and foremost to stop the process of animal killing. Parikshit Maharaj says that those who are animal killers cannot relish the transcendental message of the Lord. Categorically, it is being said that animal killers cannot relish the transcendental message. So the first step towards spiritual journey, towards understanding the transcendental message, towards understanding the relation between the soul and super soul, is to stop animal killing. When we say stop animal killing, I don't mean that you stop being this butcher where he has this huge, whatever that is called, to kill the animal. No, that's not the only thing. But consuming meat as well is animal killing. And so we have to first of all stop that. So now what Lord Buddha did is, like we heard before, he deluded the atheist. Atheists were non-believers in God. Vedas were scriptures given by God. So what he had to do is that he had to say, right, I don't believe in the Vedas at all. That way, what he did was he got the atheists to firmly start having faith in his philosophy. And in that sense, they also stopped killing animals, which was the first steps towards self-realization. So you see how compassionate the Lord is, that somehow or the other, in some way or the other, he comes and he tries to get everybody to come at least one step closer to him. That even for the non-believers, he found a way how he can bring them closer. So Prabhupada explains that Lord Buddha had to, he had to pretend that he was rejecting the Vedas, so that by doing so, he would be able to stop this very bad habit or very bad influence that was going on everywhere of animal killing. So by rejecting the Vedas, where people were saying on the pretext of following the Vedas, animal killing was going on. So Lord Buddha had to say that, Vedas reject it. They are not right. We have to reject the Vedas. And once he was able to then convince the people that, Ahimsa is the way forward because life is sacred. So you have to stop killing animals. And that way, then people were able to take that first step, towards spiritual realization. Prabhupada also talks in the purport about the discussion between Mahaprabhu and Chandkazi. I will not go too much into the detail of it, but Chandkazi had the same problem. He also said, but in your Vedas, it is said that one can kill animals. And Mahaprabhu, then spoke about it and said, it does not say that one can kill cows. And then he also went on to say that how in those days, sacrificing cows or bulls was different. It wasn't for satisfying your own senses. It was actually to test the Vedic mantras and to give a new lease of life to these old cows and bulls. It wasn't to relish the flesh of the cows. So, of course, there was a huge discussion between Mahaprabhu and Chandkazi. And Mahaprabhu also eventually was able to convince Chandkazi that your scriptures has been interpreted wrong, and there are some wrong things that have been said in your scriptures. and that's not correct. And the Chand Kazi then actually accepted what Mahaprabhu was saying, so that's another whole, another lecture, but just to mention, because Prabhupada did mention it over there. And then Prabhupada also goes on to say in his purport that Gautam Buddha is God himself. He is the propounder of these Vedas. So why would he actually reject Vedas? So this was a superficial thing done, considering the time, place, and circumstance, how he could still bring people to religion, to spirituality, to understand themselves, and to make progress in the path of self-realization. If that was not the case, then why would Lord Buddha be glorified in the pages of, or in the Stotra, Dashavtar Stotra by Jayadev Goswami? And this is a very beautiful verse. I'll just read the Sanskrit or the English, because I am conscious of the time. And here it says, O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Buddha, all glories to you. O Buddha of compassionate heart, you decry the slaughtering of poor animals performed according to the rules of Vedic sacrifice. So it says, Keshavadrita Buddha Sharira, Jaya Jagadish Hare. So I will, one second, just stop share. And yes, this was a really, really long purport, because I understand that there were so many diverse things coming here. Why was Buddha rejecting the Vedas? But the Vedas say this. So there was a lot to take from here. I don't know if I've been able to do justice to this verse, but I have tried my best. So please forgive me for shortcomings from my side. But what Prabhupada is given in his purport is complete and absolute. So do read the purport again and again. Thank you very much. If there are any questions or comments, please unmute yourselves and ask. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, dear Madhu Kumari.
Hare Krishna, Palika Mataji.
Thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful class. It was a very big purport to read, and then you just picked out the cream of all the, all the translation by Srila Prabhupada. Wonderfully, you have pointed out. Actually, as you understand, as you mentioned, all our scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, is to help us to elevate.
Yeah.
But only thing is that because people have not been taught the way Srila Prabhupada has taught us, it would be very difficult for us to understand this knowledge.
Yes.
And now you are all, doing so wonderful service to make us understand more. Actually, what is the purpose of our life is to realize ourselves, like soul killer, like it has been mentioned. So that's the only way we can save ourselves, by educating ourselves and giving the knowledge to the others. How? Because then people are so, because they've been practicing so much, all these things, it is very difficult to uncover yourself.
Yes.
This way we can recover ourselves, these scriptures, and one day, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, we may be able to go back to the spiritual world. So
Yeah.
you have got that, you have really nicely explained. And thank you very much indeed. Wonderful.
Thank you, Palika Mataji. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, my Dandavat pranams. This is Mamta here. I
Yes.
would really like to really thank you so much for beautifully explaining about how the animal killing should be done normally, which is not being done, because obviously if anybody does that animal killing, they would never want to eat the
Correct.
meat. And I think for the newer generation, I think this has to be taught to them, so that I don't know how. I mean, if I'm thinking of forwarding this recording to my other family members who are still eating meat, they cut down a lot, but I'm going to forward this, so it'll be like a good example. And especially nowadays, younger generation are so educated; they really need the reason for actually to even follow anything. They would ask questions.
Yeah.
So I think
one suggestion or opinion. See, what happens is, when we are very hard hitting on people who are still in that lower stage where they've not really understood why one should not eat non-vegetarian food, sometimes it can prove a bit like, because they will come up with their scientific thing. This is the cycle of life. This is what happens, and yes, they might quote some scriptures where it says that, two-legged animals eat the four-legged animals and four-legged eat, so they can also quote those things. So one should be very careful, because, we can talk these in our devotee circles, and yes, people understand. The main thing one has to understand is how wherever there is life, it is absolutely precious, and rather than, I think, going too deep into it, from my own example, I will tell you what touched me. What touched me was this. I'm talking of 10 years back. I was doing the Gita Life course, and I was told the story of how, if you go to our manor, we've got lots of ducks, and the ducks in those days would walk where our car park is now. And they would spoil the car park and that. So the brahmacharis were given the duty that, there is a wedding, so please see to it that the ducks don't come this side, because then, people's shoes and clothes get dirty and whatever else. And the brahmacharis were literally rounding up the birds so that they would stay near the pond and would not come this way. And when they were doing that, this is the story told to me by one brahmachari. And he said that when he was doing that, and this bird was, near a tree, and he could literally see the fear in the eyes of the bird. And Mataji, for me, that was my changing point. When he said that, that was the thing that changed me. So sometimes we can't be very hard on people. We need to go about it in a very subtle and very nice way. Of course, I mean, it is your call. You know your family better. But just a thought.
They are, I think my nephew actually started cooking, and now what he does is he doesn't go and bring the chicken home, because he said, oh my God, I can't cook. I can't see this animal. So he's already got it. So what he's now trying to change that protein into paneer and into soya beans and everything. So there is a transformation in him. So it is quite nice to see. But I want the fact that this is actually in the Vedas as to how animal has to be killed and why it is done, and plus the fact that you're telling the animal that okay, I'm killing you now, so you have the right to kill me in my next birth. That is very powerful, I thought. Mataji.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other comments?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you for a wonderful class.
Thank you.
I think it's worth just clarifying a couple of key points you've made, just to reiterate them, so that the devotees are listening, or people are new to this listening, get it understood quite clearly. So there are two parts of animal sacrifice you've covered today. One is the mode of ignorance karma kanda section, which is what the rules that you've now, of course, from our philosophical situation, we're not supposed to follow any of the karma kanda section at all, let alone the mode of ignorance section. So the animal sacrifice that you've talked about for personal consumption is the karma kanda section of the Vedas, which we do not follow. Krishna also says, do not follow the flowery words of the Vedas. So very clear instructions. And then the other part of the sacrifice that a lot of people bring up is the Asmaveda yagyas and the cow and the horse sacrifices, which are covered under the bhakti section. But there, as you mentioned also, these are done by extremely powerful Brahmins, which we do not have in this Kali Yuga. There are no Brahmins qualified. There are no Brahmins in Kali Yuga, as Prabhupada said. We're also only, and therefore that qualification has been lost. And that, as you rightly say, the sacrifice was done under very strict circumstances, where the Brahmin would select an old or a suffering cow or a horse. He would take the soul out of that body of that animal. The animal's old body is sacrificed, and a new one is then created, and the soul is placed into the new body. People don't understand these things. So there is no actual killing of that animal per se. Its soul is extracted from the body, and it is given a new one when that sacrifice is done. So the two sections of sacrifice that you've covered, one is a karma kanda, mode of ignorance, very, very dark and most abominable part of the Vedic literature, and the other is, of course, the Bhakti section. But there again, the sacrifices are at a level which there is no qualification that exists in the world anymore.
True.
So thank you again, but I just thought it's worth re-highlighting that,
Yes.
so people get it very clearly what sort of sacrifices we're talking about.
Yes, yes, very good. Thank you, Sailash Prabhu. Thank you. There's one comment which Hema Mataji has made. Before that, Kirtika Mataji has asked, how long is the age of Kali? Does anybody know how long the age of Kali is? I have a rough idea, but I'm not 100% sure. Anybody?
Is it 460000000?
Something like that. I think it is.
It's half of Dwapara Yuga.
Yeah, but I don't know the exact age, Kirtika Mataji, but it is
400
400 and something, 402 or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But yes, and out of that, 5,000 years have passed as per the purport. You're right. So that's that. And then
So we have a
Hema Mataji,
long way to go then.
we have a very long way to go, Mataji. Very, very long way to go.
Oh dear.
Yes, but that is why, see, that is why Prabhupada says that, don't think of what long way. Give this one life to Krishna, surrender this one life to Krishna. That's it. No?
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Hema Mataji, were you going to say something? Okay.
No, Mataji. No.
Okay, I'll just read your comment. So Hema Mataji has written, very wonderful. I didn't know this, but interesting. She's written, I read somewhere that Prophet Muhammad recommended the slow killing of animals. The halal process was to deter them from killing and eating animals. Because that area, people were meat eaters, so complete ban would be difficult. And again, the prayer recommended in the Quran before one kills animals also allows the animal to kill in next life. Very interesting, Hema Mataji. I will share something here. When I used to be working, my colleague was a devout Muslim who would do his, namaz 5 times and very, and like proper, and we used to sit next to each other and we were good friends. We still are. And we would discuss things. And invariably, it would happen that he would say something that this is what my religion says. And I said, yeah, but this is what we believe as well. And we would always come to the conclusion that bottom line, when you go deep, it's almost everything is quite similar what we are talking about, So it is very interesting that you bring this up, Hema Mataji. I have not ever heard this or read this, but very interesting. Thank you for sharing. Any other comment or question or corrections? Okay, so Kali Yuga is 432,000 years is a comment on the group. I don't know the name, but yeah, thank you for sharing. Okay, so if no other questions, then we will stop here. Thank you so much for joining every evening. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo
Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kumari Mataji. Wonderful session. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the wonderful.